Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Falguni, and you're watching Candid at Ciceroni Live, one of the unique talk shows that runs on our platform where we talk about a lot of fashion and lifestyle personalities, know their challenges, their struggles, their journey to inspire you. Talking about dreams, 2020 has been really fantastic in terms of fashion. We have been embracing a lot of quirks from the past decades, whether it was sequins from 70s or fringes from the 20s or probably the athleisure from the 90s. We've been embracing it all without fashion police actually policing us. And so to talk about all of such quirky sensibilities, we have with us today Nimish Shah, Creative Director Bhaane. Welcome to the show, Nimish.
Thank you, Falguni.
We're so excited with the whole new collection that you've launched.
Thank you. It was a lot of hard work.
I'm sure. So we start with the interview with that first question. 90s probably was the inspiration for you for the current collection that has been launched. So what about 90s that kind of lured you to kind of make the theme for it? And how did you go about the process?
So I think when we started the whole collection, there was a lot of looking back and sort of seeing what sort of emotional touch points, what excites people without making it into kitsch object or making it into an Uber aspiration, because for Bhaane our positioning was supposed to be premium but accessible for everyone. 90s happened to be, I don't know how we landed into the 90s, but it was one of my favorite sort of decades in terms of boldness of fashion. It was not glum. There is a fatigue now with the whole sort of everything being one size and ill-fitting, and it's just like there's no excuse. Like fashion is supposed to be a lot more about having fun,
sure.
About sort of enjoying body and taking risks. Not everybody is 45, so it's like we wanted to do open up the whole age demographic, right, and make it relevant for somebody in their 45s, at the same time not boring for somebody young. 90s was pretty much like, I grew up in the 90s. I'm a 90s kid, so the whole sort of moving from what was it called, satellite television, cable TVs, into all of a sudden we all transformed into the set-top box and being able to
generation.
And then just being able to record things and all these fast phones. So I remember having to share a mobile phone when going to college, and so it was all part of growing up, and it was all a very pleasant time because it was just so sort of combination of naivety and innocence and all of that sort of packaged well with a lot of quirk and being naughty and still sort of not being conservative but not being overly out there either.
But nostalgia is always beautiful in the hindsight.
Exactly. Yeah. Of course, we'll be nostalgic about 2020 in 10 years time.
Yeah.
Of course. But going back to the whole 90s, I went to a convent school, so a lot of my inspirations are sort of Catholic and church-going lady, which is what I say all the time, like this nonchalant boy. The references were from school to teachers who would dress up beautifully and spray this cheap perfume, which kind of is a great memory of those duplicate Poison by Dior, we were everywhere in the market.
Yeah.
And I remember school teachers taking that effort, the whole sort of that pre-finishing school finishing kind of thing. It was just a matter of prestige and pride and and I know better than you kind of thing.
Yeah.
And they would dress exactly like that. So there'll be little midi dresses, with long sling purses.
Yes.
And do you guys remember that Nivea cream,
of
like the tin?
Topper.
Yeah, the tin can.
Yes.
It's such a strong sort of and they've not changed. You get it even now. And I remember the smell. It's not the most.
I still have the topper.
Yeah, it's not the most convenient cream. It's the most aesthetically well done product.
Yeah.
It's like it doesn't spread right. I'm not impressed with the product, but the story is epic, and all the storytelling, because they only had that much time to talk about themselves.
Sure.
Whether it was a cinema ad or whether it was a print ad will be exhaustive descriptions and not just one sexual photo. Long copies for a print ad. I'm like, who's reading this much? But people were there was a time for it. Yeah, it was more like not an advertorial. It was more like editorial take on the whole sort of thing. And yeah. It was very elite.
Yeah.
And now everything is sort of diffused and through smartphones, like the communications are bubbling up instead of like, trickling down.
Sure.
So a lot has gone. So 90s for me is a great sort of memory, and it always helps going back into for creative references. And there are lots of things when growing up I would say this is so tacky, like that Rekha in that song, and just bad costumes, and now I find them so inspiring, and I reflect that in my collection.
Totally. I'm
like,
back watching all the old movies just to check the frames.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The way they would talk, the titles come in middle of the film. It's like, why can't you just start with it? Like this, it was just so awkwardly designed. It was so super creative at that time. And it shows in and to my design team, the briefs are like make ill-fitting clothes, make something tacky in the brief. But then why are you talking about organic cotton? So like it took them a whole year to understand the bipolarity within the collection of yes, we will be sustainable, yes, we will be we will produce smart design, but we won't forget to have fun. Because at the end of the day, a khadi shirt everybody knows how to make now.
Right.
So there is really but then it's about wearing it with ill-fitting pant or wearing it with really high-waisted pants.
Correct.
Like Freddie Mercury, for example. So it really so the whole bipolarity and sort of hodgepodge of fashion, but still with a strong tonality. So it's not like, oh, I just feel like doing it and it's coming out of whack. There is still a strong storytelling throughout the collection. So if you look at the lookbook, there is a sequence, and and then you see characters, and they all blend in. It's still one family.
Right.
It's not a styling thing, which is why it kind of becomes challenging as a designer as well. We're not shopping from various looks to make everybody look amazing. It is one personality. It lends to a lot of people, but we are very, very focused with who we are.
Lovely. So I also hear that Bhaane is like a culture-led brand, So could you tell us, like, how does fashion influence culture and culture influences fashion? Like, we've always seen it historically. So could you elaborate on that?
So, when I started, we were in fact not even going to launch clothes. We were talking about launching podcast as my first collection. And then everything just went on around this community and the culture we're talking about. And then this is a weekly question to ourselves in our team, where what does culture mean today? What does this mean tomorrow? And looking at what young people want to see. It's knowledge. It's like knowing this is there, and then we selecting whether we want to follow this or we want to have an appreciation as a brand for this.
Right.
But there is, our ears are open. We want to know where is this culture shifting? Can we shift it as a brand? Can we inspire, influence a collective spirit, whether it is the Indianness or whether it is quirky fashion? So I got a lot of slack when we launched, because I was like, why did you get these faces? Because I intentionally casted like awkward body types, and we didn't want to go into this whole everybody featuring good looking real people. Like you've never seen an ugly real person in a fashion campaign. It's just like, so you're spotting, you're expanding your body range, but clearly by getting somebody good looking, they know how to work fashion. You're really not, you're just projecting a size ratio in your company. So for me, that I never felt the need. I want to know the story of a real person we will start featuring. So for them, it'll be really about what is your story in life. I don't care what you wear, whether you want to wear Bhaane, whether we style in Bhaane, that's never been the point. So that went back to our community, our culture, and talking to people within team, because various demographics, education background, financial backgrounds, and then how do their opinions matter. So it is culture led. It is we want to be, as I said, we want to lead the culture, not necessarily just talk of culture for the heck of it. So we, when we do our events, going back to Bhaane, we don't do events for fashion. This is kind of a rare thing because it's more special. But most of our big events are just music programming. And when we do our parties, we don't talk about clothes at all. Music program is independent of all what we do. It is a parallel collection of culture. We commission fine artists and visual artists to do independent project which have got nothing to do with fashion. So we announce our culture page, in fact, on Monday, which is like a e-magazine, but it's a collection of stories, photos, photo essays, documentaries, observations. So as part of our launch thing, we identify who this Bhaane man will be, and we've coined the whole term, and we're referring to a soft boy, which is I mean, Vice magazine coined it, and it's really about this new gent in India, which is which is aware of what is going on, is like, again, it's a character from a movie where you know those boys exist in real life.
Right.
They're very fashionable, but then they've never became the face. That personality never became was never leading anything.
Sure.
So we whether it's a bad boy looking good but loves to play with kittens, or is very chivalrous, or is the whole sort of startup culture about like, oh, I'm waiting for investment, that's a look. It's like everybody's waiting for investment. So we've so these are all observational things. I mean, like, everybody's gone vegan at the same time.
Yeah.
Nobody's eating gluten anymore.
Yeah.
And lots of things. Yeah, all the keto followers and inventors of diets, like all these half of the boys, they just talk out of nowhere. You're like, who told you this? It doesn't make sense. And that's their lifestyle, and they're following that.
Correct.
So there is beauty to this, right? Because it's such a periodic thing. Like 2 years from now, it's not going to be that. We'll go back into this. When all boys started growing beard and tying up man bun.
3 years ago.
Correct, right?
Yeah.
So that whole lumberjack, it's like you don't know what an axe is, and you're dressing up like you go to the forest to chop wood. So that was a look and feel and trend, and now that's what. So we are observing all these things and then reflecting them in the way we design, in the way we want to promote design, and promote lifestyle to that extent. So lots of observations, very little reflection.
Very nuanced.
Yeah.
Very nuanced. Nice. So, which makes me ask you, did you always want to become a designer?
Oh God, no. I actually trained in product design. So I had a knowledge of fashion and how garments are made, but I was never trained to be a designer. So most of my clothes are more sort of, things with a different perspective, existing things with different perspective. So it's not necessarily like I can't do couture, I can't do embroideries, I can't do wedding wear, I can't do. So there are lots of things that I just don't know how to think about it, and then I can look at a denim and like come up with like 10 versions of a denim. And the thing is, I feel like there is a certain sensibility, because obviously being a boy, and this is the challenge for all male designers, we fantasize dressing women rather than knowing whether they're comfortable in it or not.
The functionality of it.
The functionality. So for me, because eventually I'm more like a garment, I look at it from a technique perspective. So getting those things right is equally important. So everything in our brand have pockets. Like, there is no excuse.
It's the best thing that has happened in the last 2 years.
And the thing is, when I started putting pockets, and my team was like, oh wow, clever. I was like, you guys don't have pockets in your clothes? I mean, that's when I realized how far away that thing was designed, and it's not couture. You're expecting to wear this today in like go to office. How can you without a pocket? Sure. So simple things like this, to be honest. And
so how did your like in your initial formative years, you also worked with Chloe and Burberry for a brief period.
Yeah.
How has that shaped your career going forward?
I think for me, Chloe opened my eyes towards a certain aesthetic, and I still think like that. It is like ultimate, reference of femininity, and still very, again, that is a character from a movie, like it is this slim French girl smoking cigarettes, so and then is very
20s.
Yeah, it's beautiful, and the romance of clothes, and it's nothing is bulky and oversized, everything's like precise, and whatever is very big is intentional. It's like, oh, I just wore my duvet out on the street. So there is that reference. So Chloe opened my eyes in terms of feminine silhouettes, and how to develop feminine sensibilities and perspective, and then came straight into Burberry, which was a great management space.
Okay.
It is the most beautifully run company with like a massive team, and they are so smooth with the whole thing. So both brands were completely different aesthetically. Both are something I follow, I love, and I still love even more, despite if it's been like 10 years or whatever. it's it's formative years, right? Like
Exactly.
it kind of
That's
leaves
why they play
leaves a
very
taste.
important role in a person's career.
Yeah, exactly.
So tell me, how did Bhaane happen? Bhaane association, was it like instant or what
No,
happened?
so a combination. I mean, me and Sonam have been friends for a long time, and I think they've been thinking about this for a long time, which I had no idea because I was busy with shift and with other sort of
Correct.
creative practices. So I did not expect it coming, and it was very random because it was. I mean, she was traveling after she got married, and then randomly she was like, "Can you come for lunch tomorrow?" I was like, "Sure," and I really thought it was like a bunch of friends, just like it'll be like a drunk
Sure,
lunch.
this is so nonchalant.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, we'll go, because it's like there are 10 of us who will just hang and randomly like have a long lunch. So I was like, another day to bunk at work.
Yeah.
And I was like, I go there, and all of a sudden it's just Anand and Sonam, and she did say, I want you to meet Anand, and I was like, okay, great. Now I've never met him.
Yeah.
Perfect time. So we'll have lunch. And I go, and all of a sudden it's like a very meeting kind of setup, and the two of them are there, and then and then there was somebody else before, and they were waiting for this person to leave so they could start talking to me. And I was like, what is going on? Like, there is no lunch. And I mean, she's yeah, she's super sweet. And then she was so quick to just and that's her personality. She just throw you in the deep end. I'm like, you should have given me some, like, I can't respond now with your husband whom I've just met, and you are asking me this question, like, can I take some time? But the thing is, to be honest, like, I just did not. And her question was like, what do you think of Delhi? And I was like, I hate it. And then she was like, I'm gonna leave the room now, you can talk work. But and that was just like a natural response. But then when it came down to it, I was like, no, but this is like a super exciting opportunity.
Right.
And it was like, okay, no, we'll talk. And then our conversations like really spiraled very quickly. So it was not one of those things which just went on for a long time. I think we agreed on lots of things in a week or two, and then just like paperwork was like 1 week or whatever. So the thing is, it was when they asked, I was so convinced. I was like, oh my God, who else is going to do this if not me?
Yeah.
And I was like, no, and what else will I do if not Bhaane? Like, I may not want to do other brands. It's like, sometimes, it's a beautiful brand, but it's probably not for you. And the thing is, for me, it was great because I could take it and run with it, right?
Sure.
With other brands, we'll have like, whatever, they'll have their set structure and whatnot. So it did work out equally. It was like a great sort of setup.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So what's your personal style like?
Oh, I'm the worst dresser ever. Like, I look so bad. My technique is like, in my head I think I look something else. So like, I feel like I'm this dainty little boy who can wear like big clothes, but I still do. I'm like, it's fine as long as I don't see myself in the mirror.
Okay.
So I don't dress well.
No, you do, but I think you have this very specific style. Like, you really love vintage, is what I've kind of.
Yeah, I like wearing random sizes. So I never look at a size label. I just like judge it by a hanger and then try it on, and then it kind of works. Yeah.
So where does your inspiration typically comes from? Like
a lot of
movies,
inspiration
culture?
is So we spoke a little bit earlier. It's a lot of costume sort of references from films, from period films, and just looking back into lots of secondary resources, whether we're looking at 70s or 20s. Like, we obviously expand and contract. The underlining thing is that it has like a used clothes vibe. Okay. So when you see something, you wouldn't have seen it for the last 10-15 years, but then it's not brand new.
Right.
So it's not a new development. It's like, oh yeah, somebody must have worn something like this. I haven't seen it recently, but it's a familiar looking. So there's a lot of styling exercise through design, and I'm always looking at thrift stores, when I'm traveling, or museums to see other fine artists' work. It helps perspective, may not directly influence fashion, but then the fact that they thought this about that kind of is like, oh, I can also think this about that. Sure. So it's really opening up perspective more than anything else.
So I personally find a lot of Wes Anderson vibes when I kind of see your clothes,
Yeah,
the collection that you kind of bring, and there's this one particular band which also is around that, like Bhaane Singh.
Yeah. So Parak and Singh obviously were inspired by Wes Anderson, and Wes appreciated it, and they do. So it's the thing is they're making a mini documentary, a little mini period film, and what I do is costumes.
Correct.
Exactly
So
in that.
There's some, you always get inspired through those kind of.
Yeah. So if you look at, say, Darjeeling Limited, or you look at any other movies by Wes Anderson, there'll always be something very mundane, like, it'll be all of a sudden a brocade turban instead of a basic color turban, and I'm like, yeah, it's still a turban. Like a Sikh boy could have actually done it, but they wouldn't have. So he'll build these characters, like the way sari slings on a woman's body. Like, nobody wears sari like that, but that's how white people think of India.
Yeah.
So, and he gets that on screen.
Yeah.
Like he'll treat those elements very literally. It's like you saying something to a white person and then visualizing something completely different, like reading a book and watching a movie.
Yeah, it's very.
So when you start building that movie in your head, the characters are very different to eventually seeing them when the movie is made.
Sure. You've seen Wonka Wai by any chance?
No, I haven't.
Wonka Wai movies. You should check them out.
Oh yeah.
Quickly.
Okay.
But the cinematic pleasure of it, because
Great.
the
I'll
color
check it out.
combinations is just like crazy in that.
Amazing.
So moving on towards the last question, how do you think India is faring in terms of alternative subculture in clothes? There's so much of wedding wear and there's so much of ethnic wear that's going on, but I think there are very, very limited labels who are even addressing this need, what the Bhaane is doing right now.
Yeah.
What's your take on that?
So we are quintessential Indian people, and Indianness will stay, and it's a great soft power. The way Indian girl can wear a sari, other girls can't pull it off. It's exactly like a kimono. Japanese people will wear it better than anybody else. So it is one of our core strengths, and cannot let that go. As far as the wedding wear and the whole opulent dressing is concerned, it's great because people who spend, they kind of find other ways to reuse it. I'm not talking about like the super elite ones, but a lot of people figure a way to reuse Indian clothes, and they want to indulge through those clothes. We are not a Western wear country, so you can't. It'll take us half a generation to move forward to be able to push that in. We still have stupid laws about not wearing sleeveless and this and that in colleges. Like you're starting there. You're starting from there. Okay, for you to spend like 5 lakhs on a lehenga, but you can't wear sleeveless. So the whole understanding is a generational thing. It's not training. It's just this is how they grew up. This is how they think. In terms of subcultures, that emergence is very strong, and it's amazing because the exposure is great. There are lots of there's reverse brain drain. So a lot of people are studying abroad, coming back and setting up businesses here. So the culture is changing from that perspective. There is an understanding of a certain need, which is why the whole sort of vegan thing picked up very quickly, because we used to practice. It was not very far away to look back at how you practice a vegan lifestyle. So it picks up. We obviously don't have a very strong community, so it doesn't have a solid voice, but there are very, very organic and true subcultures, whether it is streetwear, sneakerheads, like our business in VNV Veg Non-Veg, which is a multi-brand sneaker store, that really supports these subcultures, and it talks about all of that singularly with like a strong passion. They are not vague. They love their oversized t-shirts. They all have an accent for some reason. I don't know why. They all have and they're all worldly. So it's not, well, actually not all of them, but most of them are worldly, and they are well traveled, and they understand, and they're well traveled to understand to support an Indian business. That's the best part. After all of this exposure, we're not trying to save 15-20%. It's not really going duty-free buying. They want to buy an Indian brand to support Indian businesses. Exactly. And that comes from a solid understanding, not out of wanting to throw money away.
Sure. Interestingly, even Ahmedabad has sneakerheads group, by the way.
Oh wow.
So there's sneakerheads of Ahmedabad also going on.
Great. Yeah. See, people find a way to bond, right?
Yeah.
It's an alternative voice.
Absolutely. So such a pleasure having you on the show with
Thank
us,
you.
Nimish, and we wish you super good luck.
Thank you.
No, but I'm not going to end there because I want to know about the next collection.
Oh wow! So
forgot
yes, let's talk.
that.
Yeah. So next collection is really pretty much going back into our rationale for the brand. So one was, we want to keep looking at what it means to be an Indian in 2020. Emergence of, we're starting a whole new decade. What have we learned from the past?
Yeah.
What do we want to do? Where do we want to soften up? Because sometimes you just hold on to these brand ethics so close to your heart which are not relevant. So upgrading that, letting go of things which are not happening, and more than that, having an Indian voice, because when we go abroad, they all want to know what is your story. Sneakers is not our story. Oversized T-shirt is not our story. So where that's our biggest thing. How do we keep digging into India?
Sure.
We want to be a combination of a souvenir shop for visitors. So and create memorabilias like Indian signed products. So not necessarily elephant on a T-shirt. Maybe it might come soon, but not as literal as that. But that's literally the intention also. So how do you, if you, that's the design challenge. How do you redesign something that works, is mediocre, but if you elevate it, it opens up more avenues and it's more soothing for a lot more people.
Sure.
It's literally what Gamcha did to world, that Gamcha pattern and your Shiva and whatever all these people sell in Goa. These have become visual aids for India.
Cult.
Yeah, exactly. It's become, and it was started by hippies. It was started by sadhus. They were inspired, and there was no relevance to it. But then overall, it's what most people think of India as.
Right.
We want to create something like that. So when you have visitors, you take them to this one particular park. You will take them to that gufa, and then you take them here, and you go to eat Gujarati thali at Greenhouse, whatever, Sarabhai Museum. So you've got your list going on. We want to be part of that list as just a feast for eyes. So you come to Bhaane store or an event. It's really about, this is modern India. We are on the brim and we are dragging this whole thing. Going back to collection, it is also very big year in terms of your annual calendars. So Indian athletes will represent India for the Olympics.
Yes.
So Tokyo became an immediate city to look at, and Japan became an immediate reference point, because we have so many ties in common, whether it is your indigos and the finesse of them in their craftsmanship and us as well.
Right.
So looking at those similarities, how do they look at color? How do we look at color? Technique and again, very obvious memorabilias of what is Japan's souvenir object, and then you think of chopstick and soup bowls and things like that, and then so just researching those things, and then again, we're not making clothes so that athletes can wear them. We're just looking at this particular area as a non-ethnic reference.
Right.
Because Japan can be ethnic.
Yes.
We're stepping back and just observing that. So our biggest inspiration for both seasons is going to be 2020 Olympics and performance sports. So we're looking at competitive sports from Olympics. So we're looking at swimming, looking at various categories, and then how do they reflect. But then it reflects to a character, not to an actual practitioner.
Right.
So it's like, if you look at swimming and we're looking at athletes within that particular sport, we don't want to redo anything they wear or whatever. That's just an inspiration, and we will do it for a character who's probably 50. Or or a woman or whatever. It really varies.
Fantastic. We look forward to the collection then.
Super excited.
We're really excited about what we're seeing right now over here. So super good luck for both of it, for the show and the upcoming collection.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, viewers, for watching this show. If you really liked it, please like, share, comment. Your comments mean a lot to us. And the exhibition is open at Bougainvillea Gallery starting from tomorrow. It is going to be there day after tomorrow as well. So 2 days, and Nimish is around. So if you want to say hi, you just have to come here. Thank you so much. See you next week.
Thank you.